feeding time. While the giants were being captured, a tremendous bustle and hustle was going on back home in England. Every earth digger and mechanical contrivance in the country had been mobilized to dig the colossal hole in which the 9 giants were to be permanently imprisoned. Love that. Permanently imprisoned. 10,000 men and 10,000 machines worked ceaselessly through the night under powerful arc lights, and the massive task was completed only just in time. The hole itself, again, what's the rush? Can't they just keep them in their chains until the hole's done? The hole itself was about twice the size of a football field and 500 feet deep. At this point, I just want to stop for a second and just think about this, right? So if the hole is the size of twice the size of a football field, okay. So here's a football field, right? Just a big hole, and there's 2 of them, right? So there's one, there's the other. And so remember that they're going to have to stack. It has to be tall enough that the 9 giants, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, they could get out. That would only be 350 feet because each giant is 50 feet tall. But if you think about it, it's not that tall. They have 50 feet each times 9, and they still have this 50-foot gap. So they're not going to be able to get out. So they had to think really carefully about how deep that hole was. The walls were perpendicular, and engineers had calculated that there was no way a giant could escape once he was put in. Even if all 9 giants were to stand on each other's shoulders, the topmost giant would still be some 50 feet from the top of the hole. Oh, they get into it then. The 9 giant-carrying helicopters hovered over the massive pit. The giants, one by one, were lowered to the floor. But they were still trussed up, and now came the tricky part of releasing them from their bonds. Nobody wanted to go down and do this, because the moment a giant was free, he would be sure to turn on the wretched person who had freed him and gobble him up. As usual, the BFG had the answer. I has told you before, he said, giants are never eating giants. So I is going to go down. I is going down and shall untie them before you can say Rack Jobinson. I think he means to say Jack Robinson. I don't know. I guess that means something. With thousands of fascinated spectators, including the Queen, peering down into the pit, the BFG was lowered on a rope. One by one, he released the giants. They stood up, stretched their stiffened limbs, and started leaping about in fury. But what about the rope? How is they going to get it back up? If the rope's down there, aren't they going to... Why is they putting us down here in this grob-sludging hole? They shouted to the BFG. Because you is guzzling human beings, the BFG answered. I was always warning you not to do it, and you was never taking the titchiest bit of notice. In that case, the flesh-lip eater bellowed, I think we's guzzling you instead! The BFG grabbed the dangling rope and was hoisted out of the pit just in time. The great bulging sack he had brought back with him from Giant Country lay at the top of the pit. What's in there? The Queen asked him. The BFG put an arm into the sack and pulled out a gigantic black and white striped object the size of a man. Snozcumbers, he cried. This is the repulsive Snozcumber, Majester, and that is always going to give these disgustive giants from now on. May I taste it? The Queen asked. No, Majester, don't! Cried the BFG. It is tasting of trog filth and pig squibble. With that, he tossed the Snozcumber down to the giants below. There's your supper, he shouted. Have a munch on that. He fished out more Snozcumbers from the sack and threw them down. Did he bring any seeds? Is he going to grow more? He fished. The giants below howled and cursed. The BFG laughed. It serves them right, left, and center, he said. What will we feed them on when the Snozcumbers are all used up? The Queen asked him. There's never being used up, Majester, the BFG answered, smiling. I is also bringing in this sack a whole bungle of Snozcumber plants, which I is giving, with your permission, to the royal gardener to put in the soil. Then we is having an everlasting supply of this repulsive food to feed these thirst-bloody giants on bloodthirsty. What a clever fellow you are, the Queen said. You are not very well educated, but you really are nobody's fool, I can see that.